The dam is a mistake. I mean, it was part of a failed project that should never have been permitted. It was an environmental boondoggle from the very beginning. To build a ditch all the way across Florida and to do it basically through our natural rivers was just a terrible idea. And of course you can develop Florida like that, but it's not going to be a place where anybody wants to live. It's going to be, you know, a third world country if we treat Florida like that.
That is pretty much the consensus among 5 environmental experts who gathered at Silver River State Park to discuss the problems with Silver Springs, the Ocklawaha, and the St. Johns. Silver Springs has the longest history of scientific study of any spring in the world. Records began in 1850 and were continued into the 1950s by Howard Odum of the University of Florida. In the 1970s, Odum sent Robert Knight to continue the studies. The findings were disturbing.
And it turned out that the fish populations were down over 60% by the 1970s from what he had studied 25 years before. And the cause of that was the Rodman Dam that was blocking the movement of migratory fish up from the St. Johns River and from the ocean.
Robin Lewis is a certified wetland scientist who has fished and hunted in and around the Ocklawaha all of his life.
So the Ocklawaha River is the largest tributary to the St. John, the lower St. Johns River. And historically there was a flow contributed by the springs, several springs. There's 20 submerged springs here, a total of probably 25 or 30 springs, plus rainfall, and the water flows used to be 1 billion gallons a day here. And that's been reduced by about 40% over the last couple of decades. And that's a very significant impact because the St. Johns River runs another 100 miles to the Atlantic Ocean, and that particular run is the estuarine portion of the St. Johns River. So it's actually a 100-mile long estuary. And estuaries work because you have fresh water that flows in and meets salt water coming up with the tides, and it's that balance of fresh and salt water that produces the unique conditions which support species like blue crabs and shrimp and hundreds of species of fish. And if that salt balance is out of whack, which it is right now, you start to see declines in both the commercial and recreational catches of many species of fish, and certainly blue crabs and shrimp, which are iconic species for the St. Johns River.
The Silver River and Ocklawaha River are designated as outstanding Florida waterways, but the impact of the Kirkpatrick Dam has a severe effect on the quantity and quality of the water, not only in those rivers, but in the St. Johns as well.
The pool loses 35 million gallons of water per day to evaporation. So we're taking as more water out of the system through evaporation than, for example, the city of Gainesville pumps to supply drinking water for 90,000 customers. There's a large amount of water is leaving the system because we have the impoundment.
So we need to get that water back. That's the most important thing. We need it would be helped if we removed some of these dams, or at least in the case of Eureka, we could improve the passageway. In the case of the Kirkpatrick Dam, we do need to breach that. It's not a removal project. The 6,000 feet of dam, we're only going to remove about 2,000 feet. All the recreational facilities remain there, the boat ramps, all the fishing opportunities. And in fact, we know that the fishing opportunities within the entire system and within the adjacent St. Johns River would improve with restoration work, because studies have shown that the fish population in Silver Springs has declined by 92%.
But Palatka and the rest of Putnam County are concerned that they will lose what they believe is the treasure of an outstanding bass fishing lake.
I mean, if you talk to anybody that defends Rodman, they talk about this is the best bass fishing lake in the state of Florida. And it's one of the best in the world, one of the best in the United States. So what did Bassmasters say in 2015? Where did they rate Rodman on the 100 best lakes in the United States? It was 30th, okay? And where did they rate it in the state of Florida? It was 3rd. Lake Tohopalaga and Lake Okeechobee were better. And occasionally the stick marsh in different years has been better than Rodman. So yes, there's bass that have been caught in Rodman, but there's a lot of bass that are caught in the Ocklawaha River, both above and below the Rodman Pool. And those populations would increase with restoration. So the point is, there's a lot of myths floating around about fish use, fish tournaments, and as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're going to have more fish in the Ocklawaha River and we're going to have better opportunities for fishing for adults and children, and for bank fishermen, and for canoeists. You won't need a big boat. You won't need an airboat to go fishing in Rodman. Anybody will be able to fish in what will be the restored Ocklawaha River, and we're going to have more fish. That's the story I want to tell you. Now, Rodman in particular has been important for some trophy bass, some really big ones that hang around the stumps. I don't disagree with that. But how many people have the opportunity to go fishing and catch those fish? That's a very specialized, unique kind of fishery. What about the children? What about bank fishermen? What about people that don't own boats? What about all the opportunities there would be for catching fish, the economic opportunities for increased fishing opportunities and more fish in a restored Ocklawaha system? That's the part of the myth that we need to put to rest.
On day 9, the Save the St. John's tour arrives at the Rodman Dam. Follow us on savethestjohns.org and stjohnsriverkeeper.org. Together we can save the St. John's.